Um, within Bhagavad Gita, one way of describing what Bhagavad Gita is, it's a treatise on the yoga system. When people today in the West hear yoga, they think of generally, the sitting exercises, yoga, called asana, different postures. And going along with postures is a breathing exercise called pranayama. And those two are part of one larger yoga system that's called the Eightfold Yoga System. Eightfold Yoga System. Got a nice Sanskrit name, Ashtanga. Ashta means eight. The Eightfold Yoga System. And the purpose of that Eightfold Yoga System is elevation of consciousness through organizing and regularizing the body and the movements of life air within the body. That's a whole science. That's the prana part. It's because once the pranas are in balance, then the mind can be brought to a point of quiet. That'd be nice. And then in that quiet state, then comes meditation. There's three. So within that eightfold, so that at the conclusion of that eightfold system, number 8 is trance, samadhi, trance. Mind is fixed, absorbed, not asleep, wide awake, awake, transcendent, higher spiritual reality. That which that's it. One of the yoga systems. That's one of the chapters of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. And then there's yoga of knowledge, yoga of work. Different yoga systems are described within the Bhagavad Gita. Every one of the chapters, word yoga at the and the goal of Bhagavad Gita is at the center of the whole Veda. Vedas is section, Vedas. And the purpose of the medicine section is making the body fit for the body is balancing of the energy, diet by various by cleansing, body balance, healthy. I'll give an there's there's in data it's fire of digestion. Fire of digestion. There's a second kind of fire. Second kind of digests thoughts. Part of the kindle or that part of the fire of the body purpose of the people, not just so it's like not just, but it's that peaceful state of mind. And this, so there's aesthetics involved with the, but it's attaining higher. Bhagavad Gita is ABC. And it's a introductory for people to learn what the message of what the system of yoga body feels, but um, gives that extra. Would be really nice. Get on the train. There's a group of Oxford University has been very generous and open to UK Hare Krishna people that kind of affiliate themselves with by becoming from Oxford, and they made in Oxford a division within the religion department, a division one can get a PhD, Oxford University, in studying the Vedas, Vaishnava study. And that group of people decided, rather than being the knowledge of ivory tower folks at Oxford University, but in general, what can we do to help people in general, like both, get a basic grip on what's the message of Bhagavad Gita? So they reached out to some of us, because these are Oxford, and some of us that deal with everyday people. So there was a discussion. It took about 8 months, and their goal was to make something really simple, build down. They came up with 6 values that are taught in Bhagavad Gita. Value education is a buzz in the education world today. Rather than saying spiritual, they say value education, because it doesn't conflict with church and state. So, value education. So, taking that theme of value education, they came up with 6 values. It's not like this, but it's 6 values, prominent ones. And then a little paragraph, Oxford University refined down to. And at the end, I'll make a copy of whoever I'm supposed to. And you can make a copy available to those of you that are attending. And if you're interested, this is, little announcement. Those of you that are interested in learning the other 5 of the 6 values, I'll leave a copy of that with technology and Snake. And she can make it available. If you're interested. Kind of, really simple. So, better? Okay. We always like better. There's something to do with values and culture. Cultured people have values, and people that have values generally and live by them, they're cultured people. So there's a spiritual culture, and spiritual culture includes different aspects. Spiritual culture, well, something that I learned from somebody a friend, that teaches what's called cultural engineering. It's like, when some company buys out another company, they bring in a whole new culture at the corporation level. Or organizations sometimes do assessment. How are we doing, guys? So they do some evaluation of the culture of the organization. Or an individual can do this with their life. So there's this diagram comes from those people. And social engineering, cultural engineering, organizational engineering. So they use this example. There's several, but one of them is an iceberg. I like this one. And at the top is the part of the iceberg that you see. And at the top, in an organization or a country or a nation or whatever, family, community, there's some culture. And there's things that you can physically see and measure. Behaviors, symbols. That's things that you can see and detect with your senses. And then there's something below that. There's in an iceberg, there's a lot below what's at the tip of the iceberg. And what's below that is values of an individual, a community, a nation, a culture, a group of people, a corporation, whatever. Because values drive behaviors. And sometimes one may try to change behaviors by changing values and changing values by changing behaviors. They interplay. And we're going to be focusing on the values part. So the values is your mission statement or official beliefs or something you say, this is important to me. That's a value. And then value drives behaviors. And vice versa. Behaviors influence your values. Somebody was sharing with me, because there's a number of students here. In India, I was told, that's maybe different today, but this is maybe 15 years ago. In India, we never talk back to our teacher. We're always respectful to the teacher. And here in America, it's not like that. There's a certain culture. American, I call it the culture of no culture. And there's a culture where you're respectful to one you're learning from, because when you're learning from someone, it's not just the information. It's the character of the person is also something that you imbibe. If you have respect for the person that you're learning from, that's part of the real essence of learning. Is not just information, but character. Anyways, values drive behaviors, and behaviors influence values. And then there's a part of the iceberg that's down below. So this is, the iceberg of culture. They're assumptions, deeply held beliefs, implicit convictions. It just is. It's unchallenged certainties, whatever those things might be about life that somebody holds. It doesn't matter. Values can change. There's certainties that don't change. Even if your values change, your behaviors change, there's something fundamental about life that doesn't change. Whatever those are, that's the bottom of the iceberg, in the iceberg of culture. Let's say for Bhagavad Gita, the culture of Bhagavad Gita is to hold as a truth, like in America, we hold these truths to be inalienable rights of all living entities, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's like America. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So for Bhagavad Gita, It's we're a spiritual spark, part of the Supreme. So that is an assumption. There's a Supreme, and we're part and parcel, tiny part and parcel of the Supreme. And we have qualities like the Supreme, but we're very tiny. That doesn't change. At least, you can say that's a philosophical belief. But, when it's the culture that you live by, it's an inalienable reality. It can't be changed, even if your values change, etc. So, similarly, there's a distinction, small, won't dwell on this too much, but there's a distinction between what knowledge and wisdom are and information. Because there's a number of persons here from India, I'll share something from India. Something that I heard from a group of educators in India is the government of India, some years ago, held a national conference in Delhi. And the conference in Delhi was to speak about education in India today. And the keynote speaker had spoke very briefly. And his main introduction. Education in India today can be summarized in 5 words. Information, 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 no transformation. We're not doing our job as educators today in India. So that's when they set up, and one of the conclusions of that conference was persons that have curriculum that can go into the public school system in India called value education will pay for the development of that curriculum and the deployment of that curriculum. Because what was important was transformation or building of character, not just information. So there's the difference between information and wisdom. Wisdom is something that's inside. It doesn't depend upon how much you know or how many degrees you have or how much money you make or what your socioeconomic status is. It's something that's inside that you carry and makes you a person of character. That's a wise person. Now, developing values, there's a term, this cough started about a half an hour ago before I left, and it's still with me. Liminal space. I learned this term from a friend that, like myself, he just teaches. About the same age. He's from Germany. And he used this word liminal space, and I never heard it before. So I became curious. Liminal is a term that means in between this and that. It comes from a Latin word limen. And the Latin word limen means between this and that. So, for examples, there's a front door. We all came through that front door. And then there's a little strip of wood beneath the door. It helps seal the door from the floor. But on this side is the inside, and on that side is the outside, and there's this piece of wood in between. It's called a limen. That's a carpentry term. Or for architecture, limen is a space that's neither inside nor outside, or a hallway is also called a limen. But for example, a patio, it's not exactly outside, it's not exactly inside. Or porch. Not inside, it's not outside. It's a porch. It's a liminal space. And in sociological terms, they also use it. When you're like teenage, the liminal space. You're neither here nor there. And it feels like it too. So liminal space generally means it's uncomfortable because you're going from where you are to where you want to be, and you're kind of attached to where you are, but you want to get to where you want to be, and it's there's books written about it. So sociology, transforming from from this to that, from where you are to where you want to be in life. So I'm bringing this up because the Gita values is not meant to challenge people. It's meant to encourage people to go from conditioned to liberated life. Conditioned by forces of material energy that have us pretty well involved in the material energy. And to become a little free from the impelling forces of the material energy and enter into the spiritual realm, the realm of knowing who you are, in the deeper sense of knowing who you are, not the temporal sense. So the image is meant to show that there's on the left, and you walk through a door, and then there's a big gap between where we are and where we want to be. And then there's some people make it, and some people, I don't know, maybe they don't make it. But the teaching of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna is there to help, to transition from a condition to liberated life, or a life of self-realization, a life of knowing who you are in the deeper sense. So that's a little introduction to what the topics are. Now, I haven't circulated the paragraphs with these 6 Gita values, but here's the first one, the Sanskrit and English. Samadarshana is taken directly from Bhagavad Gita, and sama means equal, and darshana means to see, equal vision. Equal vision. One sees others with equal vision. I've been appreciating, as I was even including this drive down here, because there was lots of sunlight, and gosh, the colors in the trees around here are really fantastic. I don't know if you've been out and about to notice it, but it's really spectacular. It's like a Disney movie or something. There's so many different colors, and oranges and purples and yellows and shades, and there's a lot of diversity out there. Trees are really doing a nice job. Mother Nature is doing a nice job to decorate the trees with not just green, but all like very, very, very wonderful colors. So there's variety. Here's some images. There's varieties of fruits, varieties of insects, varieties of birds, varieties of aquatics, varieties of animals, more animals. So many differences amongst species of life. The Vedas, is wisdom literature, books of knowledge, they give a description of how many in different species. And the total is 8,400,000 different species, and then subdivisions of those species. In human form, lots of different people in this world, of different colors and different cultures and different languages and different differences, lots of differences. And lots of flags, so many differences. And then within a certain country or group of people, there's differences of how people react to situations in life. Emphasis, there's differences. And with all these differences, different life forms, different people, different situations, different exchanges. Here's the challenge. How are you supposed to see with equal vision? Because that's a value in Bhagavad Gita. Equal vision. So here's a nice graphic. Down in the lower right, that's a key. In the upper right, that's a lock. And it's shaped in a heart. So this is now coming from these Oxford University people and other teachers that they collaborated with. Gita's idea of equal vision speaks of the equality of all living beings, where life is respected regardless of race, gender, caste, creed, and species. So there's a recognition of differences, but there's a sameness within those differences. And that sameness is the life force that's within all those different forms. The life force is that spark of life. Here's an image, painting, showing in one artist's way of depicting all those little sparks. That means a soul. There's a spark within the gorilla, a spark within the lion, a spark within each one of these entities. Some of the aquatics down here. And so the spark is the same. That's the commonality, is the spark of life. And the spark of life is the eternal, unchanging spiritual energy within. It's easy to detect the differences in species or personalities or cultures or colors of bodies and things like that. Bhagavad Gita teaches to see, at least conceptually, there's a living being, a spark of life within all the different forms of life. So this is chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. Every living being is a spirit soul. That little skinny guy there, that's us. That's the spirit soul. And the qualities of the soul, according to Bhagavad Gita, the soul is eternal. Bodies aren't eternal. The soul itself is cognizant. It radiates cognizance throughout the body. In its absence, there's no consciousness. It's the soul. And is by nature blissful. That's the Satchit Ananda in Sanskrit. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. That's the quality or qualities of every soul. Here's a cute little photograph. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So that's the value of Bhagavad Gita and the teaching that equal vision rests on. That in this whole Gita values series, there's 6 parts. We're just doing the first. There's some interactive sessions, not always just speaking like this. So this is one of those. And then another one comes later where you can pair off with another person, give thought to a certain question and share with somebody. That's that kind of, exercise. We'll do that in a little while. So this is, see what to internalize the message. Deep breaths. It's part of, I have one of these Apple Watches. Anybody have one of these guys? Apple Watch? Yeah. It tells me every now and then, take some deep breaths, right? But the purpose of the deep breath, it's connected with the Eightfold Yoga system that I described. It makes the mind more calm and peaceful. I mean, they give, if you don't do it, they say, it'll just take, they nag you a little bit. So just, 3 deep breaths, 10 deep breaths, feel better. You'll concentrate better. It's a little thing that prompts. So, we're going to ask you to do this. You don't have to, but you can follow along. A few deep breaths with your eyes closed to get into a comfortable, attentive posture. And it's a little suggestion to feel who you are. Okay, it's inhale and inhale, that kind of thing. So get comfortable, sit straight if you can, and inhale, and then exhale. Deep. Inhale, and exhale. One more. Inhale, and exhale. Now with your eyes closed, with your inner senses, because your eyes are closed, feel your feet. Bring your attention, wiggle your toes if you like, and feel your feet down there. And then move your attention to your lower legs, then your thighs. Move upward a bit to the stomach area. Then your whole back. And then the front, your chest and your arms. Your shoulders, your face, your head. And now you've met your body, but you're not the body. And you're not the mind either, because within the mind there's thoughts or emotions and the observer of the thoughts and emotions. So you're not the body and you're not the mind. Now bring your attention to the self, the seat of awareness. Bring your attention to the self, the seat of awareness. Take a slow, deep breath and come and sit inside your heart, because that's where that seat of consciousness is, within the heart. And that's who you are. You're a spirit soul, connected to divine grace, connected to the source of all souls and the source of everything. And then the conclusion of this little exercise is, we're not going to do, but the mantra connects with that source. It connects the soul through sound. It connects the soul with the source of who you really are. And that's the intention, or it's the objective of mantra meditation, is to be situated like that. Okay, so that's the little exercise, very brief. According to Bhagavad Gita, it's the soul pervades. Like the sun is in one place in the sky, but the light of the sun pervades throughout the solar system. So similarly, consciousness of the soul pervades throughout the body. And it gives life to both the gross body as well as the subtle body. It's the animating force behind our thoughts, behind who we are. And the size of the soul is mentioned in the Upanishads. Here's the text from the Upanishads, at least translated. When the upper portion of a hair, tiny, tiny tip of a hair, is divided into 100 parts, and again, each such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Keshagasha Bhagasha. That's, it's subatomic. The soul is smaller than an atom in size. But that tiny soul animates the body of a squirrel, and the same soul animates the body of an elephant. And here comes the Bhagavad Gita verse. No, not yet. This is a text from Bhagavad Gita chapter 15. I skipped the Sanskrit. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear. There's an elephant. Eye is an owl. Tongue is a dog's tongue. A nose, a cow's big nose. And the sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So the senses are meant by nature's arrangement to connect us with what's outside of ourselves. Senses connect sense objects with that seat of consciousness, grouped about the mind. Chapter 15. And in the human form of life, we have, all five senses go at it and making decisions from time to time or moment to moment how to find happiness by contacting sense objects to the senses, and that's called material life. Even in different bodies, the spark of life is still that same amazing spirit soul. According to Bhagavad Gita's teaching, here's an understanding from Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text 38. Consciousness is covered in different degrees. There's a picture of a tree. So in very covered consciousness, the soul is covered like an embryo is covered by the womb. Consciousness is less developed in that, or is more covered in that condition. Or it's compared, consciousness being covered is compared to a mirror covered by dust. So more elevated on the evolutionary scale, thank you, is animal form. Evolutionary-wise, trees and plants are less evolved. Consciousness in animals is more evolved. And then comes humans, where it's compared to fire covered by smoke. It's degrees of covering. For those of you familiar with Bhagavad Gita, this relates to the modes of nature. Yes? There's a whole chapter in Bhagavad Gita about the modes of nature. There's more discussion in the whole of Bhagavad Gita about the modes of nature than any other subject. Number one subject. And it's because it's life experience, according to the modes of nature. According to Bhagavad Gita, there's three modes that govern everything. It's compared to color, like in art. Of course, IT technology uses different method, but there's three primary colors. With art, it's yellow, red, and blue, and you mix the yellow, red, and blue, and you can get any color in the spectrum. I lived for some years in New York City, lovely place to live, and there's a place in New York City called Pinchicks. You can take them a chip of paint from your wall, and they'll check the refractive index of what the paint chip is made up of. They'll make you a very expensive gallon of paint, exactly that color. So you don't have to repaint all your wall. It's just, it's the same color when it's over. So there's a way of finding out what the primary colors mixed makes is any color. And similarly, all the variety of life is made up of these three modes. That's the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. And the three modes, again, in the lower, it's ignorance. Above the lower is passion. And above passion is goodness. And there's generally a mixture of the three. Generally a mixture of the three. So in all cases, consciousness is covered. In the material state or the conditioned state where we're only seeing differences, we're not seeing the spark of life within. And one has to recognize differences. You have to be practical in life. But you also have, elevation of consciousness means to see beyond it, what's on the other side of the covering or the conditioning of consciousness. And that which is beyond the conditioning of consciousness is the soul. Therefore, here comes this Bhagavad Gita verse where one sees with equal vision. On the right side is the person who can see with equal vision, and on the left side is what they're seeing. This is the verse. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision, a learned and gentle Brahmana, that's that fellow dressed in white on the left side, a cow next to him, an elephant behind him, a dog, that's that creature in the front, and the dog eater is one who's chasing after the dog. Now, obviously, those forms of life are different. And we relate and interact with the forms of life according to the form of life. But while doing so, there's a higher consciousness position where one can see with equal vision. I don't go embracing a tiger because he's a spirit soul. You behave appropriately with the tiger. You behave appropriately with the elephant and the dog eater. The dog eater looks like not a person I want to hang out with. Looks a little rugged. But, he is a spirit soul and he's to be seen with equal vision. So behaviors, back to this iceberg of culture, the behavior may be what it is, and the value may be whatever it is, but there's an unchanging reality. That's at the bottom of the iceberg. So my behaviors should match the situation, but the situation and my values don't change the unchanging reality. That certainty that's just always there. So this equal vision, because that's the value, Gita value that we're looking at. This vision awards personhood to all, links everyone with the divine grace, and consequently with each other. That's the fruit. That's where the Gita value takes one, if it's done nicely. Equal vision begins with seeing ourselves as we are and seeing other living entities who they truly are. And now comes this interactive exercise. I'll invite you all, listen and think as you're listening, who's the person you want to share your thoughts with on this particular question. What are some challenging situations where you feel that you cannot see different people with equal vision? I'll say this ahead of time. This very same class was discussed with a group of students at the Illinois Institute of Technology, the acronymed IIT, Illinois Institute of Technology. So the feedback at the end of that presentation was, this was the best part of the presentation. So take it seriously, because it may be the best part of the presentation. It's the application part. What are some challenging situations where you feel that you cannot see different people with equal vision? Think of one person in your life with whom you have difficulty now or in the past. Now it says write it down, and you don't have to write it down. You can write it down if you on your little handheld device or something. When you had that difficulty, how did you feel about the difficulty? And then with this inner vision, like we did this, who are you exercise, consciously see that person as spirit soul, not the behavior, because the behavior may have been like very unpleasant and harsh or something. See the person as a soul that had a harsh behavior, a bad behavior, or whatever. And then how does that, or does it, change your feelings about the person? So we'll take a few minutes and to think about it. And then the conclusion is the person next to you have a two-way discussion about, what your experience is, if there is one, of think of the person. I'll read it again. Think of one person in your life with whom you have difficulty or had difficulty in the past. How did you feel at that time? Then, with your inner vision, consciously see that same difficult person as a spirit soul, aside from behavior, the spirit soul. And how does that change your feeling about the person? Question? Yeah. Behavior is bad. Not necessarily think positive, but think differently. Sure. Sure. I know somebody that has a reputation of being very harsh. And that person who's very harsh, he disturbs people. And, but he's intelligent and he has skills and he does stuff. But that person within his heart, he believes in God, and he's trying to leverage himself to become closer to God. He still does mean stuff and still harsh and cruel stuff. But that's not who he is. So now, if I don't see the soul within, I may just like alternatively, I may take a different position. I may say, I don't want to get close to that person. But after all, they're spirit soul. When you seeing the modes of nature, ignorance, passion, goodness, is different than seeing the person. So that person that was harsh, because that's like, it's really agitates the mind. There can be somebody that's very pleasant and it's very soothing to the mind, but it's not who the person is in either case. Now, the soul is the soul. The soul is eternal part of the Supreme. And here's a soul in the body of a dog that just barks. There's some dogs that some dogs don't just bark, they bite. So, and some dogs just wag their tail. So there's, it's not judging the behavior or having a regard for the entity, whatever the species is, or say human. There's the behavior, and the behavior is over there. Their anger, which is in the mind, that's also over there. And then there's the spirit soul that's different than. And if you see them as spirit soul, the question is, how have your feelings towards the person changed? It's the equal vision exercise. Clear? Now this isn't my set of things. This is the Oxford University folks. And it's easy for people to think about having a difficult time with somebody. The mind has a tendency to think of things that hurt more than things that make you happy. So it's, that's where they suggested. It can work the other way. And see them as spirit soul, the persons that make you happy. And how does that change how you feel towards them? So, but we're doing the difficult people. When you're ready, find somebody and have a little discussion with somebody for 4 to 5 minutes. And when I see people looking up, that says we're ready to hear. So at the end, I'll ask, does anybody want to share what their exchange was? You don't have to, but if you want to. Maybe at Illinois Institute of Technology, they learned a lot. I heard it from 3 people in that audience that evening. It's in your hand. Groups of 3 can also work if you want to work in groups of 3. One more minute and we'll end. Okay. Okay, let's wind it up so we can resume. It's nice to see how enthusiastic you all are to share with one another. If anybody's comfortable to do so, would you like to share what you heard and learned from this exercise? Not, we'll just move on and we'll have some questions and discussion at the end. Maybe that's what we'll do. So here's a very nice painting, particularly it's for our friends, our Western friends that are not so familiar with Bhagavad Gita. This is a painting of the scene of Bhagavad Gita. The scene of Bhagavad Gita is, Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters, 800 verses long, and in the middle of a big epic. Big epic is called Mahabharata, or the history of greater India. And it's like, the good guys and the bad guys, and who did it to whom, and, intrigue and virtue will always prevail over vice. And that's it teaches ethics and proper conduct, and and its opposite, and the consequences of its opposite. But in the middle of Bhagavad Gita, there's this showcase text that's teaching higher consciousness, because that's where it's all meant to bring one to. And in the storyline is there's 5 brothers. And one of the chief warriors amongst the 5 brothers, because they're meant to become king, their cousins tried to usurp the kingdom. not only tried to usurp the kingdom, but tried to kill their cousins several times in different strategies. And it got to a point where there was a plan to bring resolution. Krishna went to, you can say, to the bad guys, to the Kauravas, saying, you know what? Your cousins, they're entitled to the kingdom by law. But you know what? You can be the king. Just give them 5 states to rule in the whole kingdom, one each of the 5 brothers. No. Give them 5 cities. No. Give them 5 villages. No. There'll be war. It's like it was very insulting exchange. That there's more to it. So the attempt to settle didn't work. The battle is going to happen. The 2 armies are on the 2 sides, vast armies. And Arjuna, who's the chief warrior from the one side, asks Krishna, who has agreed to become his chariot driver, please draw my chariot in between the 2 armies. And that's chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. He sees who's who on this side and that side, and gives his ethical reasons why I can't go through it. I'm out of here. I want to leave the battlefield. Let them take the kingdom. Let them, whatever it is, let them kill me, but I can't go through it, and here's my reasons. And there's a discussion that's Bhagavad Gita, that's Arjuna submits to Krishna, I really don't know what is best for me. I don't know what is my duty in this very, very difficult situation. Please instruct me what is my duty. And the starting point is, before we talk about what your duty, let's talk about who you are. Then we'll talk about duty. That's how, paraphrasing, it's not quite that language. And then, so that teaches a certain type of yoga called Sankhya yoga. And then comes Buddhi yoga, and then comes Karma yoga, and then comes Gyan yoga. And so different yoga systems are drawn out. Gyan yoga, the yoga of meditation. It's eightfold yoga system, that's chapter 6. So that's the context. And these are very scholarly people. They know their subject matter of the Vedas very well. It's a PhD program in studying the Vedas. And so they're making it simple for people that are not Oxford University people, but wish to know what's in this very much appreciated and revered book, Bhagavad Gita, put forward in 6 values. First one being equal vision, based upon seeing soul that's with differences, yes. Respect differences, yes. Interact with acknowledging those differences, yes. While doing all of that, yes, it's also, there's a spirit soul within. Don't forget that and be conscious of that, and then you can be equal-minded. Even your dealings may be diverse because of different coverings of different. That's a value. Let's see if there's some comments or questions you'd like to share and discuss. This seems to work. The coughing stopped. Ginger. We have a portable microphone, and there may be some people watching. Or can I give you the before you speak? Can I give you the portable microphone? No, the portable microphone is so people who are remote can hear, not just the people in the room.
Yes, actually, it may be off the topic.
It may be what?
It may be off the topic.
Off topic. I'm used to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But my
No
question is
problem.
like, saw your website today. You saw
Not saw him. I was
you
his disciple.
yeah. In my
Somebody like him.
can you uh,
What it was like being with him?
yeah, we in India we heard a lot of stories about lot of good how he changed the Western. Talk to
Okay, can I take the microphone away from you now? All relationships are very personal and subjective. So my relationship isn't the same as anybody else or somebody else. My relationship was one of gratitude, and based upon gratitude, service. I was a little slow in understanding what the gift was that, and what was behind the gift that Prabhupada came to give. It was compassion. I understand it better now. I'm much better now. But it was, he wanted people to be happy, and he knew that people were not. And it was fundamentally a flawed process of becoming happy. Finding happiness where there's no happiness. You're not going to find happiness. So happiness of the soul is where there's happiness, and he wanted people to become happy. So my a little light went on in the course of my interactions with Prabhupada and his teachings. It was that he was risking his life because he was elderly. I mean, this is my regard for him. He crossed the ocean when he was 70 years old. Think of somebody that's 70 years old getting on a cargo boat, and he had 2 heart attacks crossing the boat. And he could easily have died. The owner of the steamship company didn't want him to go. He said, you're not going to make it. But he was determined. So anyway, he made it. And he was risking his life to give people who he didn't even know a chance to be happy. Happy in the sense of, knowing who you are and living your life in the world, knowing who you are, and gradually evolving further and further in consciousness, starting from that Brahmabhuta stage of consciousness. So I felt gratitude. I had some understanding, a little understanding of who he was and what he was doing. And it moved my heart big time. And I wanted to give back because I had received. And I didn't want to just like take. I'll take. And I wanted to give back. So so many years later, I'm still doing that. So now when it was like being with him, it was full of surprises. It wasn't like he was trying to surprise us, but we were expecting, it got to the point for me, expecting the unexpected. And that's what would happen, something unexpected. What he would say and what he would do. Although his teachings were always in consonance or resonance or fidelity with Vedic teachings, I wasn't familiar with the Vedic teachings, but I had that faith. And when I would go to read and find, yes, there it is, and there it is, it was just giving us what's in the Vedas in a very distilled, pabulumized form, like really easy. And consciousness went palpably. So it was real easy for me. Real easy. I felt lifetimes worth of transformation passed in moments. I had exchanges with Prabhupada that was like that. Lifetimes. Going on and lugging along. Anyway, it was an elevating and enlivening experience. And a life of service. That is, the service means he had a purpose and assisting him. I had no special gift or talent, but just offering whatever I could in ways that I understood meaningful. Trying to do that with my life. And it was very satisfying within. I can say, there was no point in time that I was looking back over my shoulders and saying, did I make the right? That didn't even occur because there was such fullness of satisfaction in a life of service to a perfect person. I didn't even have the idea of there is such a thing until I met one. And being with a perfect person is really perfect. Yeah. Ideal. So that's the subjective story. Yes, back. Microphone.
Yeah.
Take your mask down while you're speaking, and then you can put it back. Yeah?
Okay. So
Thank you.
this is from the exercise which you have given us. Listening such a thing for the first time and thinking of somebody whom we had difficulty with, and what do I say? Seeing them with our inner vision, and every time I close my eyes and see them with the inner vision, it's only the things. The way which they have troubled me, only those pictures are flashing, and
Which pictures are flashing? The bad stuff?
obviously. So, for somebody new to this thing, how do we start? What is inner vision basically, or how do we see stuff?
There were a few guided exercises that the seat of consciousness is other than the coverings of the seat of consciousness. And so how do you begin is by hearing and then applying that which you hear. So the hearing, this is chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. There's the covering of the gross body, or not the gross body. Now, one can understand that conceptually very easy. Chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. The soul is continually passing from in this life, from babyhood to boyhood to youth to old age. And similarly, so it's the same soul passing through. So you can conceptually understand. So that's maybe a beginning point, is to conceptually understand. And then comes, the later part is the mind, the mind, intelligence, and false ego. Those are subtle coverings of the soul. So just respond. I'm giving you some examples, and there's many, 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 but some examples of standing apart from the body, and I'm not the body. Did I send to you, or Snehavali? Okay. Did I send to you that little boy that's being interviewed by airplane pilots? He has. He'll send it to you, and you can send it to everybody. It's a 3.5 minute little video of a little boy who's 5 years old describing how an airplane works to a pilot. And he's using all this terminology. He was in his previous life, he was a pilot. And somehow he has retained all this memory of how an airplane works. Without all the detail, because you can hear it. It's really short. But, who was this little boy before he was the 5-year-old? He was a pilot. It's really, really clear. And there's many other such things, examples of people. So what is it that was in that body before that body is gone and he's now in another body? And it's the same from Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. I don't remember the baby body that I had, but I know there was one because I've seen baby pictures. But that body's gone. And now I have another body. And, according to medical science, every 7 years, of course, there's different ways of seeing this, but 7 years, the cells of the body change. So supposing you're 21, maybe you're older than 21, but supposing you're 21, this means you've had 3 different bodies already, and you're working on body number 4 in the same lifetime, because that previous body's gone. That which made up the body, the cells of the body, are gone. So you're changing bodies even in this lifetime, and the same thing happens. So that which changes bodies is not the body. It's something else. It's the spark of life. And so it starts with knowledge, and knowledge starts with hearing from teachers that have proper knowledge, and they are passing on not only information, but wisdom, where they live their life with that understanding. They carry it inside, and they convey it through their words, and they convey it through their actions. And they transmit wisdom, not just information. That's how it begins, by hearing from one who is wise and having regard for that person who's wise. That means the heart is open, and I want to know. So the switch is on instead of off. That's how it begins. And then you cultivate that living that way. Then a second thing that you can do is something that purifies the mind, and that's what mantra meditation does. It Cheta Darpana Marjanam, it cleanses the mind. So the stuff that you're holding on to, you can let go of. Yeah, go ahead. You got the microphone.
Yeah, so I don't know. So here Arjuna stops in between of the war and talks to Krishna, telling, I don't know what I'm into. I just want to leave all this.
Yeah, I'm out of here. That's right.
Yeah. So because Arjuna knows all the Duryodhan stuff, all Kauravas, he faced many difficult times. And what possible inner vision did Arjuna had while on the war field?
At the inner vision at the beginning, middle, or end? I want to know what your question is.
Because Arjuna has faced many difficult situations from Kauravas.
Yes.
And the leader Duryodhan. What inner vision did Arjuna had in the battlefield?
Okay. These are spirit souls, and Krishna wants some service from me, and I'm ready to do the service that Krishna wants from me. Now, the service that Krishna wanted from Arjuna is not the service that Krishna wants from you or me, but the inner vision is spirit soul, and my life is meant in service to Krishna. That's the inner vision. Now, before the very beginning, like what we see here on the screen, he was like one of us. At least he was acting as if he was one of us. And he was really bewildered by thinking in terms of the externals. And, frankly, he was thinking of his own happiness. And my happiness is going to be nullified by going ahead with this battle. And here's because this and because that and the other thing. One of his arguments is The purpose of the battle is to enjoy victory. But on the other side are relatives, and I would want to enjoy victory with my relatives. But if I'm victorious, then I can't enjoy with my relatives. So I'm not going to be happy. That was one of his arguments. There was other ones. Okay. Okay, over here in the front. Go over here because I saw her hand first. Yes.
What if the person who was troubling us is the person himself?
Say it again.
Question, the exercise you have given. What if the person who is troubling us is the person himself?
Oh. It sounds like the mind, not the person himself. Because the person himself is the soul, and the mind can be troubling. That's what you're asking, right? But so if your mind is troubling, what do you do? That's your question. Well, there's many things that one can do. And one of the many things that you can do, a starting point, back to your, how do you get started? You're the observer of the mind, you're not the mind. Like there's a screen, and you're seeing an image on the screen, but you're not the image on the screen. So the mind is like a blank screen, and here comes an image that says whatever it says. Silly. That wasn't nice. Are you sure? Keep saying it. And it's giving me trouble. My mind is giving me trouble. But you're the observer. So one of the procedures in counseling, as well as in yoga, is knowledge and detachment. What's in the mind is not the person. What you're experiencing within the mind is not you. You're the experiencer, and there's the mind. Knowledge helps bring a little detachment. With that detachment, then you can deal with that which is causing you disturbance better than if you're identifying with it. Generally, people identify when they have troubles in their mind. They identify with the troubles and their mind, not the person, who they really are. Say it in reverse. You lose sight of who you really are by being absorbed. Abhinivesh is the Sanskrit word. Absorbed in that which you're not. Dvitiya. This world of duality. There's the world of duality, and it's being reflected in my mind, and I forget who I am when I'm absorbed in that duality that's being reflected in my mind. So one of the things that helps is you're not your mind. What? What does that mean, and how do you experience that? If that's what you're asking. It's, happiness and distress, that's duality. Or pleasure and pain, or honor, dishonor, or whatever it is. And it's duality, and that's not who you are. So to identify with who you are, same answer to his question, you have to hear from a teacher or teachings that connect you with who you really are. And then that helps in this exercise of knowledge and detachment. It goes beyond theoretical and starts to become practical. Without teachings and teachers, it remains notional, theoretical, and you get beat up by that bully, the mind, that just doesn't want to let go. It beats you up and beats you up and beats you up. Or for some people, it happens like that. The knowledge and detachment, assisted by the process of hearing from a person who is wise, who lives their life in wisdom. They not only have wisdom, they not only have information, but they live their life in wisdom. Associating with such a person will help you. And hearing the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, for example, in association of somebody who is living the life that the wisdom literature teaches. So they not only can say the wisdom, but you can see the example in there. That will help you. Beginning point. It's an essential beginning point. You learn through teachers. And the real teacher is one who doesn't just have information, they have wisdom. Follow? Okay. Over here and back there. Hey, what about this? Okay.
Comes from a place
Your question comes from where?
from ignorance.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm hoping
Welcome to the club.
So my question is kind of just soul action, or is that a trait of vessel? If the vessel, how does the soul experience through its? If it's the soul, then how do we separate the soul as in the?
Okay. Fantastic question. And you weren't here at the beginning, were you? Let's go back to the beginning, because the beginning will help you with the question. Here's this little iceberg of culture. Can you see it okay? Okay. The behaviors is the tip of the iceberg. Value is the big part of the iceberg that's below the tip, that you can't see values, but you can see the behaviors. And at the very bottom is deeply held beliefs, implicit convictions, reality that doesn't change even if values and behaviors change. So that's the soul. So your question is, how does the soul retain its experiences moving from one life situation to the next life situation to the next life situation? And the answer to that is, I'm pausing. It's stored in the mind. Information is like a hard drive of a computer. It stores information. The mind is a digital. Computer software is a reproduction of the mind. It's a 1 or a 0. The mind is a binary processor that stores information like hard drives store information, or computer technology stores information. The mind stores information. Now, whether you recall it or not is governed by supersoul. What's supersoul? Supersoul is the Lord of the heart, who is situated with the soul, and according to Bhagavad Gita, the supersoul, gives remembrance or forgetfulness. Like why that little boy that's 5 years old remembers details and details and details of flying an airplane, operating an airplane, that some others don't remember. It's supersoul. Now, if you don't remember something bad that you did, how can you be held responsible for something that's bad, but you don't remember what it is? Well, that's another question. But, the laws of nature, whether you know them or not, the laws of nature work. And I may not remember the good and the bad, and therefore the cause of my pleasant, happy present, good fortune, ill fortune, or happiness and distress. I may not remember those things. But supersoul does. God knows, and it's being situated within the heart. He knows. And he may give me remembrance of what the bad thing was or not. But the law of nature doesn't change because I remember or I don't remember. But there's a cause. And the cause triggers result. Cause and result. That's in the material field. So your question was, how does the soul remember its previous condition? It depends upon supersoul giving that remembrance or forgetfulness. In other words, there are a few other parts to your question that I didn't catch them all. You got the microphone.
action not tied to the soul. If behavior is
If what?
if like behaviors or actions that you
behaviors.
have, like
They
negative
mirror,
action.
the behaviors mirror the mind. And if your mind changes, your behaviors change. And then the mind is a covering also. It's not who we are. And the configuration of the mind has a lot to do with the modes of nature. As we talked about, do you hear for that discussion? Yeah. So supposing, for example, supposing I cultivate the quality of kindness or in general goodness, compassion, cleanliness, speak the truth, etc., then that's a mode of nature. And that's going to affect behaviors, but it's also going to affect the orientation of the mind, the makeup of the mind. And you go the other direction. I don't care. I know some people like that. I don't care. And so that's another mode. And so that's the mind that it drives behaviors. So the path of yoga is to put all that to the side and try to connect with the Supreme. Now, that which will help you connect with the Supreme is moving towards the mode of goodness. Be truthful, be compassionate, and etc., etc., etc. Cultivate knowledge, be clean, be regulated, etc., etc. Mode of goodness things. It's going to help me get closer, but it's not the answer. The answer is making the connection with the Supreme. That's what yoga means, is connecting with the Supreme. And there's different ways how to connect. It's just like there's different yoga systems. Some yoga of work, some yoga of knowledge, some yoga of love and devotion, some through meditation, and then combinations. But it's make that connection. And the Bhagavad Gita is teaching how to make that connection. Different ways for different people, different dispositions. But the goal is the same, make that connection. In the life of goodness, live a life of virtue and goodness with that connection. That's yoga. Okay, we're going to try one more time. There's this frustrated young lady in the front.
It's definitely not.
Okay, I'm just joking.
My question throughout the year and not
Out. Okay, the question specifically is struggles with following, not following, and how have I dealt with it? Okay. These two essential principles. The first most important essential principle is, in Sanskrit, it's sadhu sangha, or as this young person in the front row was responding to his question, it's being with people who are wholesome. Because if they live a life that's wholesome, or live a life that's connected to those higher values, and they live their life that way, they're not just talking about it, but they inside, it comes outside. The behavior is there, value is there, the conviction is there. They're not perfect persons, but they're living their life that way. That's going to be the greatest resource for you and any one of us to become better. And then, there's another principle that helps a lot. Mode of goodness helps a lot, because when you when you don't have mode of goodness, goodness maintains. Passion creates and ignorance destroys. So sometimes we wish to do something, but we don't have the substantial mode of goodness. We don't maintain it. And then at last it fizzles. So then it's unsteady. So spiritual strength that comes from good association, learning the art of goodness, living a life of goodness where when you say something, you do something. And you stay with it. You stay with it, you stay with it until it becomes second nature. And then you take something else that you can do that will improve yourself. You stay with it and stay with that. To stay with it, that's mode of goodness. It's commitment. One of the sayings that I had somebody make a calligraphy diagram of and put it on my door is a saying by Gita, Johann Gita, German. It's the title of the thing is On Commitment. Remind me and I'll send it to you. Others. It says something like this. Even in material matters, with no commitment, many of you are students. Without commitment, you wouldn't be here. Without commitment, you're not going to complete your studies. There has to be commitment. So with commitment comes the grace of God. And without commitment, you can't do even material things. What to speak of spiritual things. So to become a devotee is a commitment, but something that's reasonable within your capacity to commit to do. If you commit to something that's high in the sky, you'll feel bad because I didn't reach the sky. But something that's attainable, and then you continue the commitment. And he writes a little short saying, doors open that weren't even there before by the arrangements of providence. The commitment is one of the ways to make progress, to become a better devotee, to become a better person, or become that liminal space to go from where you are to where you want to be. By the grace of God, there you go. So one has to be receptive and eager for the grace of God. There's somebody in the back. Yeah. It's a tricky microphone.
So I had an example about the question that we had earlier.
Sure.
So one of the examples was just getting like upset with like a family member or something like that, and seeing how we saw them when something made us angry, but then seeing with the soul, with that element. And we had discussed that we see them more than just like okay. So after like going through that, we saw looking from the soul perspective, they are doing their best, and maybe that got us upset, but that was their best, and it just made me realize like I can shift focus and see some good even when there is such anger in those difficult times with family that sometimes happen.
I want to comment. Is that okay? I know many situations where persons made that shift that you're speaking about, and they shifted from that other mood to, you know what, we're family, and I'm just going to serve them. I'm going to leave aside, my expectations and stuff. And I'm just going to be in the mood of accepting them and serving. And the other person kind of like wondered what's going on. You're different. And when it continued, the whole dynamic of the relationship changed. I mean, not changed, but, became a whole other kind of a relationship. It's, when you project that mood of acceptance and service, it has an effect upon another person. And ultimately, it has an effect upon the Supreme Person of seeing you being in the mood of service to another soul who is part and parcel of the Supreme. And smiles. Makes things better. Not nice, at least better. Just how the world works. So that's a comment on that experience.
There was just one other example I think this one was about myself. So, like, I guess growing up, there have been times where I would also like act out and it would upset someone else. And I was trying to look introspectively. So, I guess kind of showing that self-compassion I've seen. I just wanted to ask you more about how to look inwards from even our own action.
Good. Asking that question is you're halfway there. Without asking that question, it's not going to go anywhere. So having that inquisitive spirit on that particular point, great. Then my response after that is very similar to her question, and that is associate with persons, spend time, try to find some people who, I'll just use this very general word, they're wholesome. They're good. They know you. They're not interested in controlling you. They're interested in helping you grow. And inside they have wisdom, and they're kind and willing to share that wisdom with you. And it's like a mirror, and then you can see yourself better with a person that's kind of like a mirror, and they can see things that you can't see inside yourself. I call it blind spots. And if you have an open relationship with not every person on the planet, but certain very special people that are very, very wise, evolved in consciousness, and live a life that's in keeping with higher consciousness. They live their life all like that. So those persons can help you. And being around them will help inspire you to be more introspective. And here's a second point. As the mind becomes clearer, and one of the ways to make the mind clearer is mantra meditation. The Sanskrit is real easy. Cheta darpana marjanam. Cleansing the mirror of the mind. Cheta darpana marjanam. So that's what's the first experience of mantra meditation. And as the mind becomes more clear, you become better at self-introspection. In reverse. If the mind is very cluttered, even you try to look inside, you just won't see much because the mind is cluttered. I'm a visual person.
Thank you.
One part of my life is I'm a visual person. So once upon a time, I was a young boy. And when I was a young boy, I lived by a lake. It was in upstate New York. You know where Cornell University is? It's the lake right next to that one. That one's on Ithaca Lake. This one over here, another lake. So I spend a lot of time in the water. And when when things are very stormy, you can't see very far at the bottom of the lake. But if the lake is very calm, then you can see like 30, 40 feet. You can see a golf ball at the bottom of the lake just snorkeling around. So when the mind is clear, which comes from mantra meditation, Gita, Darpana, Marjanam, then you can see inside better. The mantra meditation will help you do introspection better. It's practical experience. And there's a nice, visual that goes along with it. Because when the wind is blowing, the water moves, and the water moves, the sediment at the bottom moves, it's all muddy. It doesn't have to be muddy. It's just not clear. You can't see the bottom of the lake. You can when it's calm. So practice daily, emphasizing the word daily, satatam. Practice mantra meditation every day. The best time to practice mantra meditation, early. Before you do stuff. Make the body clean, put on clean clothes, go to a sanctified place, and make the inside clean. You'll get much better at introspection. So those are three things. Associate with wholesome people or wise people or sadhu sangha. You know that term? Sadhu, you know the meaning. Sadhu, a saintly person, an elevated consciousness person, sadhu. Sangha means associate. Okay, so it's just have close relationships with such people and inquire from, invite them inside your heart and to, reflect, where do you see my blind spots? Help me. And then as much as you can you be a support to help me work on some of those, or at least one of those blind spots? You make a commitment. Second. And the third is mantra meditation. It's getting late. 8 o'clock. Well, if there's one more question, I'll take one more question and then we'll move on. I think we're done. Very good. You can. You're the last one, in fact.
In Mahabharata war, Arjuna's son Abhimanyu get killed in Chakravyuha. After he dies, Arjuna becomes very angry.
Our American people aren't going to understand anything about what you're asking. Can you come and ask me afterwards? Because it'll be, very esoteric for them. What's inner peace? That's what you want to know? What's inner peace? That's what you want to know. Oh, in simple language, connecting with who you are. And you can unpack that. What does connecting with who you are mean? It means for this spirit soul, we're a tiny spark of spirit that's part of the Supreme Spirit. We're connected with the Supreme Spirit. And as the part is meant to serve the whole, we serve the whole. We serve this in coordination with other souls that are serving the whole. We try to live our lives that way. That's a life of peace. Even when you're in the midst of confusion, turbulence. Okay. Thank you all very much. Been a really good audience. I hope it was meaningful for our American folks here. How about you back there? Is it okay? So now one last, I mentioned at the beginning, this is 6-part Gita values created by Oxford University folks for people that aren't in their ivory tower with them. It's for anybody to understand kind of like the essential elements of values that are taught in Bhagavad Gita, just like this chart shows. It focuses on values, but values drives behaviors, and it can give you access to, eternal realities that Bhagavad Gita also reveals. So it's 6 parts. I'm going to leave it with our host here. You all know our host. And if you're interested, you can contact him. And, you can go through the other 5 parts. It's really simple. Gita values. I just have to remember to send to you all the documents. I have to remember. Okay. I'm supposed to give you also the 6, the paragraphs that go with the 6 values. You remind me. And anything else? Okay, but he has that. Okay. So thank you. And something I like to do, I hope there's enough of them. This little sweets, just I'll walk around and put out your hand. Thank you very much.